Hey Zaka family! Zaka is launching an exclusive membership platform to provide you with career development workshops, coaching, community, and so much more. Go to ZakaConnect.com and sign up to receive information on how to access early registration and perks. Hello, everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Pierre, who is the Executive Vice President, Chief Behavioral Health Officer at Community Health of South Florida. How you doing today, Jean?
Good afternoon. I'm doing great, Paul.
Oh man, it's a pleasure to have you on. This title of yours was a tongue twister, but I like that. It lets us know that you have a long journey and a lot of valuable information to share with us on our show today. But before we dive in and find out a lot about what you're doing currently, could you just let us know a little bit more about your cultural background and where you're from?
So I actually have an interesting cultural background. My dad is Haitian, actually originated from Cap Haitian. And my mom is Jamaican, and she grew up in Manchester, Jamaica. So you may be wondering, how did they meet? Well, both of my parents are graduates of Stony Brook University, and they actually met through the Caribbean Association. Had me, got married, so I kind of got the Jamaican vibe, and I got the Haitian vibe. But I actually grew up, spent most of my time with the Jamaican side of my family. So unfortunately, I don't speak Creole. I can understand some of the dialogue. I know some of the words, but I can speak Patois, and I can understand because I kind of grew up with the yards. You know, I grew up with the
That's
yard
right.
side of
The
my
yard,
family.
the yard man, the yard
Yeah.
man.
So I kind of, reference my face and say, well, I'm Haitian because my mom is Jamaican and my dad is Haitian.
Haitian. That's the first time I heard that right there.
Yeah.
Haitian.
Haitian.
So I just want to know, like, the Haitian culture, the Jamaican culture, like combined. That's got to be a vibrant family right there. The energy alone. Like, talk about a little bit more of like your cultural background growing up, your Korean background.
So what I will say is that, whether you're from Bermuda, whether you're from Bahamas, whether you're from Jamaica, I think Puerto Rico, I think a lot of the islands, they have a lot of the certain same traits, cultural beliefs, background. You Haitians may eat Junjun rice. Jamaicans, we eat rice and peas. Jamaicans may eat jerk pork. Haitians may eat fried pork, grill. So I think a lot of my upbringing was kind of neutral because both of my parents had strong beliefs. They had strong upbringings, and most importantly, their families immigrated and were not born in the United States. My dad was actually born in Africa, and my mom was born in Jamaica. So they have a lot of similarities in their upbringing and understand what it is to be an immigrant coming over to a new country, learning a new culture, learning a new language, and propelling through the educational system and being a successful Haitian American, Jamaican American. So I think that was kind of beneficial because my parents kind of saw eye to eye with a lot of some of the cultural things. And just to kind of give an example, I was raised that when adults are speaking in the room, you excuse yourself as a child. Coming in the Caribbean household, you just don't come in the door. You got to say good morning, good afternoon, hello.
Good evening. Yeah.
Okay. My grandfather, you came in the house and you didn't say good evening, good afternoon. He'll tell you to go outside. And I grew up in New York, and sometimes it may be 20 degrees outside. So you didn't want to have to start that process over. So you want to make sure that if it was
let's redo this again because you didn't even say the good words. It was get up out of here and come back in.
Try it again. So I think having a strong discipline, having a strong passion for education and success is something that both of my parents installed in me. So I think that was extremely beneficial in my upbringing because I knew what it took. My dad is an engineer. He's worked for the Department of Defense 30 plus years. My mom just retired actually last week. She spent the first 25 plus years with her career at Merrill Lynch, and then she just finished another 10-year stint at Wells Fargo.
Okay.
So she's been in the banking industry. So both of them, have a successful career history. My grandma on the Jamaican side is 93. My grandma on the Haitian side is 90.
Let's go.
Yeah. So,
Let's go.
yeah, it's very interesting that, they're from different Caribbean islands, but they have so much I
In common.
guess, in common. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of the my parents are Jamaican. I say my parents are Caribbean. My father's St. Lucian, and
Okay.
my mother's Jamaican.
Okay.
So it's I hear you on it because they're speaking the same language in a sense of like that, like you said, the upbringing, just being able to be like very grounded, very humble, loving, very respectful as well, right? That was like the thing, it wasn't like one of them was American and the other one was Caribbean. They were trying to find a happy medium. It was like both parents, but it's also hard for us as well too because they were a lot strict with us.
Yeah.
You couldn't go to the American one and say, Dad, this mom is acting too tough. They were going to both come at you the same way.
Correct. Yep. You're
Yes,
right. You're right about that. But you know what? As I sit back and reflect, I appreciate, my grandparents, for that. I remember, one of my aunts growing up, we would get up, we'd do our Saturday morning chores, with Jamaican aunt, after chores,
Saturday morning.
we may get in trouble, get a spanking, and then later on in the afternoon we had a roller skating rink, but that discipline was installed,
True.
in a Caribbean household, you're gonna hear some Jamaicans, you're gonna hear some bad word,
Yeah. Don't make me box you outside of your head.
Yeah. So I'm very,
they would just come for us. But again, like you said, they really helped us out. So when growing up, like what were some of like the challenges you face? Like even like going into school and before, like when did you start feeling comfortable in your like being grounded with what you were doing with your life?
So I moved down here. I grew up the early portion of my years. I grew up in the Bronx. So I moved down to Florida in '86, and I moved from Bronx to a place called Delray Beach. And the reason I moved to Delray Beach is because my mom worked for Merrill Lynch, and that's where they had a transfer location. It was either Delray Beach or Miami. And back in '86, that was kind of like the cocaine cowboy years. And my mom was like, I ain't leaving the Bronx. I ain't leaving the Bronx to go to Miami. That just is not happening. So that being said, I can remember when I moved to Florida, one of the first cultural shocks is, up in New York, New Jersey, tri-state area, you have Black Catholics. So I had always went to a Catholic school. And when I looked around the classroom, people looked like me. Well, when I got to Florida and entered a Catholic school, nobody looked like me, So that was a problem for me. So I couldn't necessarily excel because I was in unfamiliar grounds. Nobody looked like me in the classroom. And they're not only one, okay, he doesn't look like anybody, but he's Catholic. But my dad's side of the family was Catholic, but my mom's side of the family is Baptist. But
I was going to say,
yeah. When I lived in New York, I was going to Catholic school, but it was all Black. There was no whites in the Catholic school. So that being said, I transitioned to the public school system, and at that point in '86, there was a lot of stigma, because I grew up with the Jamaicans, but my name is Jean Pierre. You can't hide around from that, and that's why even to this day I signed Jean D. Pierre, because if I would have just Googled Jean Pierre in Miami, you may see 300 names come up,
True.
So that being said, in '86, there was a lot of stigma, about Haitians. Haitians ate cat. They came over here on a raft. So it was a difficult, transition for me, especially, the Haitian community in the tri-state area. They're a little bit more settled than Haitians that had migrated to South Florida. So it was challenging. It was challenging for me, growing up knowing that, my mom was Jamaican. I got a Haitian name. There's a lot of stereotype about Haitian. And at that time, South Florida was diverse, but it wasn't diverse in Delray Beach, So not only was I Black, but I was from, two different Caribbean backgrounds.
Yeah, that was definitely must have been a very hard time for you, trying to find your ground. Like, where do you fit in? A lot of our guests had come on and said, we were born in America, but we have Caribbean background, So like when we're hanging out with our Caribbean friends, they're like, well, you're not too Jamaican. You're from America, right? Or you're not even Puerto Rican. You're from America. But then when they're hanging with their American friends, they're like, you too Puerto Rican. You too Jamaican. So it's like a lot of that back and forth stuff that could really like throw you off a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And especially in a young age, especially if you don't have someone to kind of help coach you through that and kind of say, it's okay, you fit in wherever you go, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's that had to be a very hard thing on your end to kind of like find your path and be proud of it too. Like you said, like knowing that you're Haitian, but you're also Jamaican, being a Black Catholic, like you said, going into that school. You said you were from the Bronx, right? Born and raised in the Bronx. What Catholic school did you go to?
I don't even remember the name of the Catholic school, but I know I grew up off of 30th Avenue and then spent some time in Parkchester.
Okay,
but
cool.
I don't even remember the name, but I can.
Okay, no worries. I'm from the Bronx. That's why.
Yeah.
I'm from the BX. So when you said that, I said, hold up. A Jamaican from the BX, I got to give love. You know what I'm saying? More love. After that. Now, obviously, as a behavioral health officer, education, right, has played like a major important role in your journey. Right? Could you must have and definitely do have, several different types of degrees. Can you speak a little bit more about that journey? How did you go through this process and like how did you find your way through the educational system?
So in full transparency, I wasn't really, when coming out of high school, I wasn't the best athlete, I mean, I wasn't the best student, I was an athlete, into socializing or whatnot, really wasn't on a college projectile. I wasn't necessarily, I wanted to go to college, but wasn't really sure. And then my mom sent me on a college tour, and I went to FAMU. And I seen, just the experience of the HBCU culture. I saw the women, I saw the party, I saw the food. I came back home and I was like, Mom, sign me up. What do I have to do? I was a whole new person. As I look through, and go back and look at the memories, I had never, leaving New York, I saw, places saturated with African Americans, but I had never saw, where I talk about look around and everyone looks like me.
Yeah.
Going into sitting in classrooms where I got a PhD level professor that looks like me. This was all a new experience for me. I had African American teachers, but they were far and few. So to be infused into an environment like that, I said, Mom, sign me up. So I came back, started getting on the ball, get my grades together. Actually went up to FAMU in the summer of '97 because remember I told you my grades were on par. So I had to do a bridge program to kind of prove myself. So I did the bridge. I did the bridge program, and then in the fall of '97, I actually got full admission into the university.
Full admission.
Full admission after I did the bridge program. Started as a nursing student. Took all my prereqs and whatnot. And to just be full honest, full transparency, them science classes just got to me. So I went to my advisor and I said, listen, what else can I do? I know I want to work with kids. And she said, well, everybody want to come over and do, criminal justice and social work. They think that's the easier degree. So I'm not going to let you do that. I said, well, I'm really not interested in no criminal justice. I said, I want to work with children. She said, well, you ever thought about social work? I said, yeah, tell me a little bit more. So I never forget, she pulled out a piece of paper and it was necessary. It was maybe 50 different careers you could be as a social worker. And everybody thinks that social worker is DCF, Child Protective Services, stamps. But I mean, in my career now, I have some federal probation officers that are licensed clinical social workers. I have individuals that are teachers. There's social workers working in so many disciplines. So long story short, I matriculated. I got my bachelor's degree in social work. I started my career working in the Department of Juvenile Justice. I worked at a high-risk residential juvenile correctional facility. Did that for a couple of years, and then I had a Jamaican superintendent at the time. He say, yo, Pierre, I'm going to see a grad school admission yet. I'm going to see a grad school paperwork yet.
Yeah.
And at that point, he had a valid point, because in the state of Florida, if you work for the state, you go to school for free. But at the time I was working DJJ, I had a little part-time job, so money will come in. I'm not really worried about school. So
Me not care about the school and that thing.
yeah, so but he was persistent. So finally, I quit my part-time job. In social work, if you have a bachelor's degree and you go back to school within 5 years, you can get your master's degree in 30 credit hours. So it's only about 6 classes, and then you have to do some internship. So about year 4.5, I said, oh, my time's ticking. So that's when I applied. I went and got my MSW, which is my master's in social work. Went through the graduate program. I finished out my tenure with the state of Florida, worked for the state of Florida, doing auditing compliance. And I actually came to my current job and to audit the program. And at the time, the vice president said, you know what, I know you have to go through your process here, but we have a QA position I want to talk to you about. And during that time, in the state of Florida, Jeb Bush was our governor, and everything was going to the privatization. Everything was being privatized. So I knew this was a good opportunity for to make a move. So came over to my current employer as a QA/QI specialist. During the same time, I worked in the evenings and weekends on my clinical hours.
Damn.
And in 2012, I finally passed my license in clinical social worker test. And back then, there was no transparency in test results. And it took me 5 times to pass that test. I passed it on my 5th attempt. And as I remember reading those questions and having specific dialogue, the test, the way it was written, it wasn't really written, from a DEI perspective, because
Yep.
providing culturally competent care in our eyes is a little bit different. So fast forward to 2023, where they released the results, and I can tell you that 77% of Caucasians pass on the first attempt. And African Americans and Hispanics, it was about between 20 and 25%. So now that the results, they showed you that there is a large disparity in Black, white, Hispanic, who passes this test. So I noticed, one of the things, people ask me, what's been your biggest barrier in your career? And that was passing that licensing test.
Five times.
5 times. It took me 5 times to pass that test.
Did you have to take time off? It's like you have to do it every year, like a year time frame?
Yeah. You actually have to take, 90 days. And it just so happened, unfortunately, in 2012, my appendicitis ruptured. So I was hospitalized for 5 days, and almost died. So at that point, I had opportunity to kind of say, you know what, let me not rush back to work. I'm going to live, breathe, and learn how to answer these questions. Because remember, you got some questions that are just factual. Either you know it or you don't. But the lion's share of the questions are rationale, case studies. And if you don't know how to answer it in a specific manner, you'll never pass, no matter how you study. So long story short, I passed the test with flying colors the last time because I digested it. But it always left a sour taste in my mouth that, you know what, and I've never been a big activist, you can't really fight the White House. So I never protested the test or anything of that nature. But now it was just really eye-opening to see that they finally released the results in 2023, and they were jaw-dropping.
20%, 25% on the first shot.
25% on the first shot. No, it's not geared towards.
And it's expensive.
Yeah, back then it was about $300 a test, I think. So that was definitely my biggest challenge. So that being said, I got licensed, continued in my role. In 2015, my boss at the time decided to retire. So my CEO at the time, he gave me an opportunity, promoted me to vice president of behavioral health. I remained in that role for about 2 years, and then I was promoted to vice president, chief behavioral health officer. And then my boss said, I'm getting ready to retire. So I need to ensure that you are in a position that if I retire, you'll continue to excel within the organization, or if you want to broaden your horizons and apply for a CEO position, you are positioned to do that. So after 10 years or so being removed from my last graduate program, I actually went back to school to get an MBA. And when I talk about what my schedule didn't permit, okay, me to go on campus, okay, because I'm always in meetings, I'm traveling, just not feasible. But when I say it was just a different experience, when I got my MSW in 2007, there was no turnitin.com. There was no online learning. There was no artificial intelligence. None of that was around. So
Yeah,
it was just a completely new experience for me. But luckily, my wife had did an online program and she was able to help me kind of navigate because it was completely different. I was a brick and mortar. I was a person, you go to class, you got your books, you go to bookstore, you study, you meet in the library. We did group projects over text message. So and and asking to speak to somebody or have a Zoom meeting. When I started, Zoom wasn't really out like that because it was prior to the pandemic. So I matriculated through that program, and then March of 2020, we all know what happened. So everything really changed as far as navigation. School wasn't kind of priority. I was trying to, excel in my role here at the job and also stay alive. And then you got school on top of that. But I was able to graduate in August of 2022. And at the same time, I applied to a healthcare executive program at the University of California, UCLA, where they select about 50 healthcare executives throughout the country to participate in that program. So I graduated from that program as well. And that's kind of been my educational journey. I think the next.
I was going to ask, like, with all that education, like, I know that obviously when people get into the job force, right, you do all this education. I know there's always something that you're like, this school never prepared me for it. So, like, what were like two things that you learned along this journey as you were bouncing around, going from different professions, your supervisor talking to you? What were two things that school never prepared you for?
I think one or two things that school did not prepare me for is real life situations. When you got a staff member come in and say, my husband's dying, like he has 2 weeks to live. I need you to, I need 2 weeks off to spend with him. But the most challenging one is when we had team members that deceased from COVID. Okay. And when you have executive contacts and you have nursing personnel that are doing this the best they can to care for your direct staff member, okay, and they still don't make it.
Damn.
Okay, so I think that was losing team members, okay, specifically a direct report during the COVID period. That was challenging for me.
Mm-hmm. Now, with that being said, I mean, you're hitting on something very big right here. Obviously, dealing in your profession, mental health is a very big thing.
Absolutely.
Like, what do you do, or what tools do you use to kind of like help you, like, de-stress, focus, and center yourself and align yourself? Like you said, you were losing a lot of people during that time. It's got to be, and the thing is that it's constant something happening. Right. And sometimes, as we know, it's not all good stuff. Right. So just being hit constantly with things like that, how are you actually working on that?
So the funny story is, during COVID, everything was kind of locked down. There was nothing to do, So we get a nice fringe benefit package here. So we get a lot of vacation, but nobody was flying. Nobody was going to resort. Nobody's going to all inclusive. So one of the things that my family did is we actually went to all the beaches in Florida. I mean, from Daytona to Marco Island to Hutchinson Island. And that really gave me an opportunity. In 2021, I went to the beach more time than I actually did since I moved down here in 1986. Damn. So that has kind of been now my retreat, is when I need to just unwind. I will go to a resort on the beach and kind of chill out. But while I'm here, I play tennis. I play tennis 3 to 4 days a week. I'm in a couple of leagues, and that's kind of my.
Was that the sport you was playing in college?
I didn't play any sports in college.
Oh, you said high school. You said high school.
Yeah, high school I played tennis and basketball.
Okay.
When I got to college, I got distracted. So I didn't play any sports.
I'm gonna catch you on this. I was remembering during the COVID time on the news, they were talking about the people from Florida. They wasn't staying home. They was at the beach every day. I watched the news 24/7 and seen everybody on the beach. So you
Yeah.
were one of those people.
So I was on the beach, but most of the beaches were closed down. So actually, you would have to go to a resort that had a private beach. And of course, the capacity is limited. So I would be in the water and the next person may be 300 yards away. So it was safe. And I felt very safe
Okay.
in that
Okay.
activity.
Just making sure because people were
Yeah.
still on spring break.
No, I wasn't proud. And then
Uh,
tennis, played a lot of tennis as well because tennis is one of those sports that's not a contact sport. But even that was shut down for like a year and a half, you know.
mhm.
But when we talk about now and the other activity that I've really, gained a passion for is I walk. So the nights that I don't play tennis, I walk, I bought a bike, but I only rode it 2 times. It's sitting in the garage now. And my wife talks about it all the time. She's like, I waited in Walmart for like 3 hours for that bike and you only rode it. I was like, but I couldn't do anything else. I thought I was going to become, prepare myself for the Tour de France, but that didn't happen. I chose to walk instead.
Okay. Now walking is good.
Yeah, but working in this field, you really see so much, man. That's what kind of gets me up out of bed. Indirectly, I don't see patients anymore, but indirectly, knowing that I have the ability to change lives, whether that's utilizing grant funds to pay for somebody's, rent, putting groceries in their home, ensuring that they're getting quality care. So that's what kind of gives me, the juice, the desire, the passion to kind of get up every morning. But it's difficult work. It's difficult work. It's not easy. And staffing has become a challenge, since the pandemic because, with the new generation, the first question they ask during the interview is they say, listen, what's your remote work policy? Well, we don't really have one. We have to see our patients in person. We are a healthcare center. So that being said, it's very important, and we've actually established some wellness activities within the job. We
Okay.
have we have lunchtime yoga, we have basketball league, we have different employee wellness because wellness is a top priority. And with my direct reports, I tell them, listen, if you have to deny somebody's vacation, I need you to come and staff that with me and provide an appropriate justification on why you've denied that, meaning that we got an accreditation organization coming. They're behind on notes. It has to be something because
Yeah.
working in this field, you need that break.
You need that time.
You got to be able to step away from it.
It's sad that when COVID came around, people and after COVID, mental health became like a bigger thing. But mental health has always been a big thing. It's
Always
just
been around, but it's that stigma's kind of been removed.
Yeah. And especially being Caribbean too.
Correct.
It was like keep your head down, keep working hard. Mental health was not a part of the dinner table conversation.
Yeah.
It was more like, look, I said you had a rough day. You're gonna go back to work, keep your head down, work hard. We're gonna go to school. But now it's like we're actually like diving in and seeing like some of the things that we disregarded as a child. Now as an adult, we're like, wait, hold up. I should be paying attention to these signs now.
But I also think that the positive outcome of that is, prior to the pandemic, I didn't have enough funds to serve patients. Everybody wanted more money, more money, more money. Now our lawmakers have invested in mental health, but we can't find the staff, to provide the services.
Qualified staff too.
Yeah, qualified. As I talk with different executives, that's what keeps us up at night, finding the staff. But mental health is real. The Miami Open just finished. I'm a big tennis player. The Miami Open just finished on Saturday. But during week one of the tournament, the number one player in the world, her boyfriend jumped from a balcony at the Ritz-Carlton and killed himself. So you got to kind of think, you're a millionaire. You got anything you potentially want. He was an ex-hockey player.
Wow.
You just think, I'm afraid of heights. So you just think that he jumped off a 22 building, hotel and killed himself. So it's real. And that's why we encourage our staff members to educate, ensure that, we're providing resources. We're in the community doing wellness fairs. There's a national hotline, suicide hotline now. So I think the pandemic has actually really exposed the need for mental wellness and mental illness. And that's a good thing because now there's additional resources, additional funding. Where prior to the pandemic, the funding, did not meet the demand.
Yeah, yeah. Now you are right. But I'm glad that there has been a shift, and I'm hoping that a lot more people dive into that and really, take the initiative to get into that life and doing, like you said, walking, riding a bike, things like that we used to do as kids, right? We got into our adulthood and sometimes forget that that's a part of our life. Like we got too busy into the corporate life or into family that we forget that those things are there. Now, talk to me a little bit more about your current role, right? The Chief Behavioral Health Officer.
So
Like, how
we
was
we
that?
serve yeah, so we serve we're a federally qualified health center, but we are also the designated community mental health center, South Miami-Dade. So we provide the full spectrum of outpatient services, and we also have an inpatient 16-bed unit. We have 14 beds for inpatient psych, and we have 2 beds for inpatient detox. We were recently awarded a $4 million SAMHSA grant for a certified behavioral health clinic. So we provide the full spectrum of outpatient medication management, case management. We have some specialized children's programs. We have 23 specialized therapeutic foster homes. So I have kids from all over the state that come and program with us for an average of 6 to 9 months. So we provide the full spectrum of behavioral health. In addition to behavioral health responsibilities, I oversee our security department, and I also oversee our risk management and compliance department. So that's kind of all the departments underneath my umbrella. I do have one of the larger departments in the organization. We receive a decent amount of grant funding. So we provide, like I said, the inpatient, outpatient, and community-based services.
Okay. Mm. And what are like two things you love about your career?
My passion is to be able to work with people. I've seen individuals come in a really decompensated state, where they've been offered their medications, disheveled, dirty, out of treatment. I've seen them being able to get back in treatment, take their medication, get involved in the therapeutic process, and are now, you know, recovered and having meaningful lives. And actually, a number of them are working as certified peers, are giving
Mm.
back to the community.
Okay. And like I know we touched base on obviously mom and dad and being Haitian and Jamaican, but like how has your cultural background helped navigate your career or helped you in your career?
That's actually a great question. From a cultural perspective, spiritual is big for us. You know,
Yeah.
religion is big for us. And I remember, as a young child, going with my grandmother to nursing homes in the Bronx, not too far from Kips Bay. I remember it's over there somewhere. We used to go to nursing home during Christmas time. We used to drink Christmas carols. We used to go during Easter. We used to go during different times of the year. And that's where I really found a sense of giving back. My grandma worked in the nursing field. My aunt is a nurse. My uncle works in law enforcement. My brother works in law enforcement. So I think, from a cultural perspective, and being second generation American, Jamaican, Haitian, we're typically, my dad's brother is an engineer. Come from Haiti, you come over here, they say, yo, here, they want you to be an engineer, doctor, dentist,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
CPA. It's not really, social worker. You're going to be, something, accountant. There's always the bigger dream. So what I learned was the passion to give back, and um, the family members that have not had the opportunity, that don't work in the giving or social service field now, they're doing it in volunteer work. So I was raised in a cultural environment to always give back. And I want to share this. I want to share this very, important element from a Caribbean perspective. My grandmother was sponsored by my aunt. My grandmother has probably sponsored almost 18 individuals since she arrived in New York City in
Let's go.
1940s, 1950s, whenever, she arrived here. And that I don't see that pattern, and I know immigration has changed, but that's the type
Yeah.
of environment that I grew up on. Was, from an immigrant perspective, how my grandmother was, she was working here as an undocumented Jamaican. cleaning houses. Learned of a story where, my grandfather came over here and he was working under somebody else's name, until they saved up money to get a
Wow.
lawyer and be in this country permanently. So as I sit back with, my grandma and learn more about our family history, what I learned is that Caribbean folks actually have that resiliency and they have that determination to not only when they get to the top of the bridge, how can they bring others up? So that
Yeah.
really is kind of what drove my passion to work in the social services, because some of my family work in social services, but others don't. But there has always been an element of give back. And for my family, that give back was always centered through the ministry, through the church.
Mm. That's deep right there. Your resilience is big in the Caribbean culture.
Mhm.
Almost every single guest that has come from with a Caribbean background has always mentioned that. You know what I'm saying? And saying that the resilience. So it really is something we saw our parents do when we were coming up and our grandparents, but now we actually live in it now.
Correct.
It's like they were subliminally we were picking it up. And now we're at a place in our lives where we're like, wait, hold up, that I can see that now. I can see where I picked up a little bit of what my father and mother had instilled in me at a very young age. I
And,
know we
and an
talk.
interesting and an interesting fun fact is that my grandmother left her kids over there and her husband because my great aunt could only sponsor her at the time. When she
Dang,
came over here, worked as an undocumented, left her kids over there, and eventually got everyone over here, bought a house, bought another house, and was basically able to, live the American dream. You know,
dang, that's real. But
um,
think about that. That struggle to do that.
yeah,
Like now, mind you, some people live in America, have gone to the school system, the education, and still don't own their own house.
yep,
Still, and it's the issues that they face. But like some of these Caribbean people and some of these immigrants that come in, they have one option, and that's to make it.
yeah,
That's it. There's no other plan A, plan B.
mhm,
So that's shout out to our parents and our grandparents for really like kind of showcasing that to us at a very young age. Now, I know in your field you've climbed up this corporate ladder a lot. Your schooling, your education to where you are right now. Like, talk to me now about something that really is a big topic. Diversity. Like, in your opinion, like how important is diversity in your field and why?
it's extreme. It's extremely important, and remember the last podcast I was on. One of the items that I touch with is um, if you open your phone book and say, okay, I want to see a marriage counselor, or I want to see a licensed clinical social worker, or I want to see a licensed professional counselor. Um, Service delivery has really evolved since pandemic, where a lot of things can be done virtually now, such as this podcast. But the gap in the DEI that I see is that if you want to see a clinician, the chances of you finding a clinician that looks like you, understands your cultural background, and can relate to your background are slim to none. I live in one of the largest metropolitan areas in this country. And when I talk about looking at how many African American clinicians I know, it's very limited. But then if you say, okay, I want a black male, it's almost like a unicorn. I know probably 4 or 5. And I live in a large metropolitan community. And it's just not out there. So yes, you will receive services, but will you receive services from an individual that understands your cultural background, that can relate? Um, and things are getting better. I'm a recipient. I was able to get my loans paid off because I did my time in social services. So there is now a lot of incentive-based programs, government programs for individuals that want to work in
Yeah,
um, social economic communities, deprived communities. So it's getting better because individuals know, okay, well, listen, I can go to school, I can get loan, and I can take the long road and get them paid off in 10 years. But I can also come and work at a health center like CHI and potentially work for 3 years and get my loans paid off.
yeah,
But things are
yeah,
getting better. But I think the biggest gap is encouraging individuals to work in the social service profession, work in the professional therapy profession, because there's just not a lot of us out there.
Mhm.
Just not.
It is very hard to if if individuals don't even know that that is a profession, like you say, your uh, one of your teachers had, uh, or maybe an advisor had showed you 50 different, you know,
Career. Yeah.
careers, right? There needs to be more of that, or there needs to be more individuals like yourself that make it to a level, a platform like this that could kind of help navigate the individuals that are coming up and being like, hey, look, just to let you know, because now you're that person now
Correct.
that's telling people, hey, look, if you want to follow in my footsteps, just to let you know, you can follow in my footsteps here, but keep in mind, there's 49 other careers in the same field,
With the
right?
same
And
degrees.
we got to start pulling up our black and brown individuals to be in those positions, and then also get into those positions and be in positions of leadership, such as yourself, right? Because then at that point, you have the ability to kind of help change that narrative that has been there, that stigma has been there for years, and it's not like the individuals don't want to be there. It's just that sometimes it is the luck of the draw sometimes. But you've been able to make it that far and and make it to this level. And someone of your stature, like what's like one of your proudest achievements?
So, I served as the immediate past president of the National Association of Black Social Workers, the Miami chapter. And when I joined, it was, most of the chapter members were retired. Okay. And, this was one of, monthly meetings, activities, and something what they look forward to. So we probably had maybe 10 active members and 15 paying members, meaning that we had 5 members that just wrote a check every year to, say they're active. But I was able to elevate that chapter to about 35 to 40 members,
Okay.
and bring new blood in. Okay. Infuse new ideas.
Yeah, that's
And that
nice.
chapter is excelling now. They have lunch and learns. They have all type of things that are going on. So I'm extremely proud that I was kind of able to not revise, but bring new ideas, new concepts. When I took over, they didn't have an IG page, they didn't have a web page, they didn't have an email address. They all correspondence were going to a PO box.
But we still running. We still running.
You know, so
We
I was
still
extremely
running.
proud of that, and I'm not active anymore like I should be, but I do plan on, because I had graduate school, has a couple other things that I was going on in my life, um, and they were able to get a new president or whatnot, and I plan to get back active again. But extremely proud of some of the work that we've done in the community with that organization.
Mhm.
And my latest work accomplishment, we applied for a certified behavioral health grant. There were only 62 organizations in the country that were awarded during this last cycle. And my organization was one of them. And, I spearheaded the process with the consultants and the internal team to kind of get it done. So those are extremely, extremely, extremely competitive grants, and we were able to get one of them. So those are kind of two,
That's nice. Nice right
one
there.
personal and one professional
Okay.
highlight that is very meaningful for me.
Well, congratulations on all the work that you've been doing, the people you've been connecting with, and also just the influential impact you've had on your community. You've done a lot of working on yourself to get to where you are. I do admire the fact that you're taking time, from work, that lifestyle to then, play tennis and walk. That's something that, some of the guests really highlight. I like to spend time with my family. I like to go out. I like to cook. I like to go to the beach. I like to run, whatever it is. I like to hear our guests, and I know our listeners love it too, because then it's like they're real people.
Yeah.
Right. You see these credentials, you're like, when do they even have time? But you see how you're in your busy day, in your busy life, you still find time. So, Jean, thank you so, so much for just being present, sharing your journey, sharing your story. Love everything about what you're doing. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about you and hopefully coming down to Florida one day and probably hitting some beach with you.
Absolutely.
Give me a little
Absolutely.
sightsee, all these beaches you went to. Yeah. But just want to let the listeners know, if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Jean Pierre, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed, Zaka, wherever you listen to your podcast.